In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to create some simple earrings. I've got a couple examples here. Some of them are stone, some are glass beads. You can tell some of them are rectangular, circular. These are glass pearls. They're just all kinds of possibilities. Here's a video where I have started just with some gemstones. They're rectangular in shape, and you'll notice I just put it straight down on the head pin, but I felt like it needed something to elevate it, and I'm using a size 15 Delica bead, and then I'm just going to put it on the other side also. Now the head pin that I'm using, it's a rather long one. It's also kind of thin, and you'll notice when I'm grabbing it, it is so easy. It's not thick at all. It's a different gauge metal. So you'll notice I bend it over with my round nose pliers. I switch it over to my other hand, and then I grab it with some needle nose pliers, and just with a lot of tension, and you'll see how it's bending too easily. Usually with a lot of tension, I'll spin it around, and it depends on how, like I say, the gauge of the wire, the thickness, how strong it is. This one is incredibly thin and too easy to manipulate, actually. So then I'll take my flush cutters. I've got a picture of them at the ending of this video, and you will want to cut it fairly close, and then I will take my round nose pliers, put them back in there, take my needle nose pliers, and I'm going to try to flatten that little edge that came up. You'll notice I got a little too close to the seed bead and I broke it. They're just little glass beads, and they break very easily, so you have to be extremely careful when you're trying to get in there and press it down. So I ended up having to cut it and begin this one again. It happens from time to time. When you're creating these and you're doing earrings, you want to make sure they're about the same length. And you will notice I did one sterling silver ear wire and one inexpensive one, just to show you what it would look like with the difference. So I'm going to once again twist it open, place it on there, twist it back to where it doesn't fall off. Here's an example. I just wanted to show you an example of how to twist it and not torque it too much, because it will break if you consistently do that. So there they are finished. So easy to do. So now I'm going to show you I did the same thing with an eye pin that we did earlier. And the eye pin just gives you that little dangly part. So the left part was the eye pin. I put a seed bead on there, a gemstone, and then another seed bead, and I just wrapped it. This, like I say, this gives you that dangly part. So I've already done that, and now I'm using an eye pin that has a little drop point at the bottom. It's really cool looking. I'll show you those later. Picked up a seed bead, and then a round bead, and another seed bead. I think those are size 11 seed beads. I used a head pin that has a little stronger gauge this time, so you could see the tension difference. So you're going to wrap it back around. I'm going to switch hands again, and you'll be able to tell the tension. See how the bottom one doesn't move like it did on the other one? So I'm just going to wrap it a couple of times and clip it, and remember, be careful with that. It'll go flying across the room, and you'll step on it later, and that'll hurt. So I'm going to flatten it out and be very careful this time. I'm not going to crush my seed bead, my glass seed bead. I'm going to straighten out my round part. Then I'm going to go use the eye pin part to open it up and place on the one we just created. You do want to make sure it's pretty tight there when you close it back so it doesn't fall off later on. And you notice I didn't use a bead mat, and that is why when I moved things around, my beads went flying everywhere. So make sure you get a bead mat. I'm just going to use that inexpensive ear wire I've showed you before. You can get those at the local craft stores, but I really like the ones that you can order from the other places, Fire Mountain Gems, Rio Grande, Etsy, all kinds of places sell those now. So I'm going to close it back tight, and that's how easy it is. It's so simple to create a beautiful little earring. We're going to discuss beads. I generally like to work with the Miyuki beads. If I'm dealing with glass beads, they are just generally more consistent. I'm really not a fan of the check beads at all. These are Toho, and they're a little more consistent. You can get them at your local craft store. A lot of times you will see beads written with the /0, so that is said as 6/0, 8/0, 15/0, 11/0, 10/0. You'll notice as the larger number of the bead size, it is actually a smaller bead. If you see these 6s, these are more like the check beads, and they're just not consistent at all. This size was your 8s. Those are a little more consistent. And then these are 11s. These were the Toho that I showed you in the previous picture. This just gives you an example of the size differences. And since you are beginning, I think you should really just start at your local craft store. That way you can grab the beads, feel them, see how heavy they are, what colors they are, texture, see if you like them. These are just some examples of, what options you have at the craft stores. These you can tell are 8mm, and they're really quite large. I just wanted to give you an example of that. These are different style of glass beads. And these are some beads that I picked up at the craft store, and then the other ones I got in Atlanta. You'll notice those tan and green ones, those are really heavy. These are just some more examples of different glass beads. Swarovski beads. You hear a lot about Swarovski. They are a little more expensive. It just depends on what kind of project you're making as to whether you want to spend more on them. They really are brighter though and prettier than just your glass beads. So here are some ear wires, and you don't have to get sterling silver. It's just the bottom ones that you get at the local craft stores, to me, just look cheap. You can still get some nicer ones that are not sterling silver from other companies. These are head pins I got from Fire Mountain Gem. The reason I like to show you these is it shows you the gauge. And the gauge, when it's a lower gauge, then it is a much harder wire. And so that's why you should be able to look at the different gauges, the different sizes. You'll see some of them are head pins with a little ball on top. Those are really cool. Sometimes you don't have to put a bead underneath it. So just make sure when you're buying the head pins that you might want to buy those at these other companies and not just at your local craft stores. You do want to invest in some good pliers and flush cutters. You just need 1 or 2 chain nose pliers, 1 round nose pliers, and some good flush cutters. I wouldn't necessarily get those at your local craft stores if you want to start out there, but you can get them for just about the same price if you order from one of the other companies we've discussed before. I hope you go out and make some beautiful earrings. Your friends will love you.